Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Wrong End of the Snake. It's a webcast about audio, touring, and the relationships we've built between our road families. Tater and I have had an 18-year relationship on The Wrong End of the Snake with bands like Ted Nugent, Kid Rock, Slash, Stone Temple Pilots, Prophets of Rage, Iron Maiden, and most notably, 10 years as front of house and monitor mixers for Linkin Park. My co-host, Kevin Tater McCarthy, is a world-class monitor engineer with over 80 years, 30 years in the business. I'm very proud to call him my friend. He has 8 Top Dog Monitor Engineer of the Year awards and 2 Parnelli Monitor Engineer of the Year awards. I'm Ken Van Druten, aka Pooch. I'm a front house engineer with 3 decades in the music industry. I'm a 3-time Grammy-nominated recording engineer. I have 8 Top Dog Front of House Engineer of the Year awards, and I am also a winner of the Parnelli Front of House Engineer of the Year award. Let's do a little housekeeping. Please use the chat window of the Zoom app to communicate amongst yourselves. If you are streaming from our YouTube channel and you want to be able to ask questions of our guests, register to be on the Zoom call for future episodes. Links to register are in all of our social media. If you have any questions for our guests, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom app. We will answer as many questions as possible during the hour and then answer any leftover questions in our Q&A overtime episode. Look for that to be uploaded to our YouTube channel in a few days. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to visit our social media. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is at Wrong End of the Snake. Tater, why don't you tell us about the guest this week?
Oh, we have a fantastic guest today. We have Phil X. He's the lead guitar player for Bon Jovi. Talk about a dream gig. This guy got it. All right. He grew up right down the street from me here. We're going to hopefully get his mic going. He grew up in Ontario, Canada. His first band was Sidinex, which is his last name backwards. Released 1 EP. But that didn't stop him. He went on to become a prolific session guitar player. Bands like Tommy Lee.
Check.
There we go.
Got me now? Okay.
Yeah. We got you now.
Tommy Lee, Chris Cornell, Avril Lavigne, another Canadian. Kelly Clarkson, Rob Zombie, Daughtry, Alice Cooper, Perry Farrell, Triumph, and many others. Let's welcome another 1966er, but he's a little bit older than me. Great year. And his life is just a fantasy. Phil X.
Yeah.
Just a fantasy.
You made it, man. You made it. It's funny. We were sitting there just going, well, this is a new one. Like, what if he doesn't show up? We're just going to keep talking until he does. And here you are.
In my live chat, we talked about that the other day, right?
Yeah. You seem really low in volume. Is there any way you can?
Is that better? Is that better?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So
okay, cool.
I was doing my live chat and I thought I could slip out and I lost track of time, man. You know what? My family is in upheaval right now because of this whole, we live in LA, but we're moving to Nashville and
oh, wow.
we have to leave soon. This is a long story, but we're looking for a house to be in November 1. So it's a crazy time.
It is a crazy time.
So, when you're living the dream, there are still hurdles.
Even when you're on top of the world, there's still issues.
I gotta apologize.
They still have hurdles at the top of the world.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Well, hey, listen. Thank you for coming and spending some time with us. And we know your time is valuable. And thanks for.
No, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Come and talk to us. We spoke on Saturday, and I was telling you that this thing is kind of a lot about relationships and, trying to help maybe younger guys see your journey and
right.
See, what it took for you to be in the right place at the right time and all those kind of things. So can we just start off real quickly where you come from? Like, you come from Canada, right? Ontario?
Yeah. Yes. Toronto.
Nice.
So I'm from Toronto. My mom is still in like Mississauga, which is the outskirts. And she called me. My sister called me this morning and she was like, I'm taking mom to see the giant marquee of Bon Jovi where you're 10 feet tall at the Eaton Center. And I'm like, what? She goes, we got to get a picture. And I'm like, that's so, my mom is 83. So she's like, come on, Elena, we have to go get a picture. I'm like, unbelievable, right?
But dude, you're on
the
the marquee though, right? You're on the marquee. That's like a huge
Times
deal.
Square too, man. Somebody posted a picture of Times Square.
I saw that, yeah.
And it's pretty amazing. It's almost surreal. I mean, even 80 gigs in, I'd wake up from a nap on a jet and look over and go, hey, it's John Bon Jovi.
Private jet.
Dude, you're on the stage with him almost every night. It's not, get over it. So, I mean, that kind of shit happens still. But I mean, for me, like growing up in Toronto, there was a thriving music scene, whether you were doing covers, because I did start doing covers. I mean, people go, hey, where'd you go to college? I go, actually, it was a van with 3 guys and playing every hole in the wall within 500 kilometers. And it's 3 45-minute sets every night. You really, really, really honed in on your craft. Even when you were doing covers. Like I was telling somebody the other day, even if I came up with a really cool lick, that lick didn't become ingrained in my DNA until I applied it in a live situation. So, hey, I could do this in Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo tonight. That kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, and then, a thing with the youngsters too is I feel like, I washed dishes in 2 restaurants to buy my first Marshall cabinet. So when, I post a picture, hey, I'm using this pedal today, and people are like, wow, man, I wish I could afford it. I'm like, cut some lawns, man.
Yeah, do whatever it takes. I know.
Don't wish you could afford something. Afford it. I mean, it's a pedal, I feel like, everything is so, especially now, it's like news, right? With the internet, like, is the world worse, or has it always been like this and we just see more because of the internet? Like it's that thing. So it's the same thing with, artists. We see them all the time. Tom Morello has an Instagram page and posts stuff all the time. We didn't have that when I was a kid. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have internet. We didn't have nothing.
What I like to say is I still like my rock stars mysterious. I wanted to get that Cream magazine once a month and only see 6 pictures. And that's all you knew. We didn't know their car they drove and their houses and all that stuff.
Tater, shut it, man. No one wants mystery. No, you know what? I always look at it like that too, because when I feel like especially with the passing of Eddie Van Halen, which is really devastating. But I feel more fortunate than ever that I saw them when I was 14 at Maple Leaf Gardens. And it was like he was a superhero. So when people go, is it like Lennon or Hendrix? I'm like, it's like Superman died, man.
Yeah, for real.
That's what it is for me. So I feel like, and there's people go, I say the greatest. And when people leave a comment like, well, one of the greatest, I'm like, fuck you. Don't come here and say one of the. This is my page. He was the greatest. Nobody comes close.
It's true, man. He was, there, except for Jimi Hendrix, there was no one else that like innovated new things in guitar world, in my opinion.
No,
I was the same way as you.
I loved Hendrix, and I loved what he did, and I loved his playing, and his writing was phenomenal. But I don't think anybody changed guitar as much as Eddie Van Halen, including Hendrix. Like, he not only changed the sound, but the look. He was doing stuff that just nobody else was doing. So if you try to picture a world without Eddie Van Halen, I think people would still be playing the licks from Hot Legs by Rod Stewart.
I love it.
Okay, it's not that bad. There's been other amazing.
There's been others, but I totally agree with you. So because of that, like, all right, listen, I'm a guitar player, but nowhere even close to how you play. But absolutely, Eddie Van Halen completely influenced how I play, and I'm sure he did you. How did you take that influence and turn it into your own spin? Like, what made you?
Yeah, even when I was a teenager, I understood that there was an Eddie Van Halen. And that I didn't want to be a copycat. But what I took away from Eddie was his inventiveness. I'm like, I got to invent my own licks. I'm not even going to tap anymore. I'll use a bar. And then at one point I stopped using a whammy bar. I just wanted to do all the tricks without a whammy bar. And I wanted to, in fact, it was funny because I remember playing the Cat Club here with the Drills years ago. And somebody yelled out eruption. So I did eruption without a whammy bar. I did the tuning peg.
Wow.
And this guy comes up to me and goes, man, I always thought that was the whammy bar because it sounded so close. Hey, buddy, I'm in a meeting.
That's amazing.
Sorry, man. I need some time. Sorry.
Your kids coming in.
I didn't hear your Canadian accent. I was going to ask you about your Canadian accent, but I finally just heard it.
Just heard Surrey.
Yeah.
That's it. I got rid of A early on. But then I'm at a market somewhere and I say sorry, and somebody goes, hey, you're Canadian. I'm like, why'd you get that?
all the videos I've watched you describing your rigs and all that kind of stuff, and I go, he's Canadian. I don't hear it. And then I just heard it right now. And that was one of my questions for you. So there, I got the answer.
There you go.
You know, it's amazing. Both Tater and I have, I think some of our most favorite musicians in the world are Canadians. And so, you know, we don't know you well, but I can just tell that we would be good friends. You know, people like, I don't know if you know Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz.
Dude, Brent's played a bunch of Drills gigs.
Yeah.
Todd, we go back. Todd and I were actually in the studio a couple of weeks ago working. I was playing guitar, obviously, and he was playing bass. And we got to play with two drummers, one being Tommy Aldridge and the other being Josh Freese, because it's a multi-aspect, multifaceted, multi-drummer, instrumentalists on this project that we're doing. And it was really great to just hang out because we go way back. And I remember the first time I met Todd, I think was in Munich, because I was in Munich doing something. And Brent said, Slash is playing tonight in Munich. We'll come and get you and bring you to the gig on the bus and stuff like this. So I'm talking to Todd, and I remember Todd's band when I was still living in Canada. He had a band called, I'm being a dick, Electric something, or I forget.
Oh yeah.
And I remember seeing his band on Much Music, which was the equivalent of MTV. And I told him this. So I was watching your band, I'm watching the video, and I'm watching you, and I go, now that's a good-looking guy. And that was one of the first things I said to Todd, and he kind of looked at me like, he kind of laughed, and then kind of thought, where's this guy coming from? It was kind of funny.
Yeah. Those guys are awesome. Shane
Super
Gallus,
talented
too.
though, man.
You know, oh, man, all those guys. Yeah.
Great singer. It sounds like he can sing anything.
Yeah.
And he's a great bass player, great guitar player, too.
Yeah. But it's just funny. It's like, I don't know why, but it's in our path and our journey. Both of us have run into, you know, it's always Canadians that we love the most. So we're super awesome that you guys are here.
When I, because of my demeanor and because of, I guess I'm polite and I have an East Coast thing, but when people find out that I'm from Canada, they're like, of course you're from Canada. You're so nice.
You're so nice.
Believe me, I know some assholes up in Canada too.
There are some, I know.
I'm from Detroit. I'm only 15 minutes away, and boy, you just cross that water, and there's a big difference. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you know, it was funny because I met Kiefer Sutherland at a Bon Jovi show in 2013. And when he found out, he's Canadian.
Yeah.
So when we started talking, and he was kind of, at first he was really nice, and he was like, you know, I was wondering what it was going to be like without Richie, but man, you did a really good job. What was that Les Paul you used? And he went on, and then he sized up my height, and he goes, you want to fight?
What?
I'm like, what? He goes, you're a pretty big guy. You want to fight? I'm like, I'm trying to change the subject. I go, hey, I heard you're from Canada. He goes,
yeah, right.
Yeah, man, I'm from, where are you from? I'm like, Toronto. He goes, yeah, man, if you were from Hamilton, we'd be fighting right now.
Okay.
I'm like, dude, I'm not going to fight you. And then And then there was one moment. This is like the weirdest thing that's ever happened backstage. He flicked me in the Adam's apple.
Whoa.
So he just went, and I was like, okay, dude, I assessed the situation like super fast. I was like, he's either checking his reach or he's checking out my reflexes.
Right.
So it's time to puff up. So I'm like, did you just flick me in the Adam's apple? And he's like, oh yeah, man, I'm sorry. I've had a few drinks, you know. And I'm like, and then John found out about it. I get on the jet and John's like, hey man, thanks for not killing Kiefer. We've been friends for 20 years.
Yeah, it's a small world, man. I dated a girl in Los Angeles, and her sister dated Kiefer. So there was, I've had my fair share of moments being around drunk Kiefer. It's not fun. Looks like you've frozen up a little bit there. I don't know if you can still hear us.
Oh, yeah. Can you? Oh,
we can hear you. You're just,
there
you go.
Oh,
yeah, there we go. Fixed it.
Yeah, there was a weirdness. I'm gonna not touch anything.
Don't touch anything. It's all working.
I lost you right after girlfriend.
Oh, I had a girlfriend in Southern California that her sister dated Kiefer in the 90s. And so I had a bunch of interaction of him when he was drunk and coked up. And I mean, it was bad. Like every weekend I was around that guy. And so I totally know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously he's probably like a really cool and normal dude when he's not.
He was relatively, yeah, I mean, like a pretty nice dude, but he was at that time period in the 90s, he was drinking, you know, he'd wake up and drink. So, yeah.
I'm a fan of 24.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. So then let's see. How did you come from Canada to the US? So there was, you had some time with Aldo Nova, right? And Triumph, maybe?
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. The short answer is illegally.
Sweet.
Really? INS, I'm kidding. So I mean, there's a hurdle, and you know, you need a sponsor and a visa to get down here initially. And I landed that, which was great, but it wasn't from Triumph. It was through another management company down here, and but Triumph, I speak to Gil all the time. He just wished me. He texted me happy Canadian Thanksgiving last weekend.
Awesome.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so, yesterday, right?
Yeah, I don't know why it's different. Well, maybe because it's a different country. But anyway, you know, before I did that, I was in a band called Frozen Ghosts, which was a Canadian band, and that was my first coast to coast tour. And then when I got the call from Aldo Nova, it was like, the record's done, it's been recorded, I just need a live band. And somebody gave me your number, and I also need a bass player and a keyboard player, which I had two guys that were perfect. So we rehearsed the stuff to death. I borrowed a studio from a friend of mine and said, and Aldo, just come in, show up, I'll pick you up from the hotel, take you to the studio. He was like, he couldn't believe how we nailed everything, which was great. And then we rehearsed in LA, and then we toured for 6 months. And that was my first time touring in the US. And it was pretty amazing. You know, the people, fans, they're really, really all about rock and roll down here.
Totally.
And then when I went home, what happened was Triumph asked me to do the Triumph thing while I was leaving for the Aldo Nova tour. And I told Gil, I go, look, this sounds really exciting, but I just committed to a tour. I don't know how long it's going to go. And he goes, well, he was really cool. Like, just just call me when you get back. If we got some, we got some. If we don't, we'll talk. And that's what happened. I came back. Aldo Nova thing was done, and Gil was like, "We don't have anyone." But you know, I love Mike. I love Gil. We had a great time. It was a weird time too, because you know, we did the record and they had the deal, and then they got into a battle with the record company.
Oh, right.
It really didn't have a hard release. It was like a soft release. I kind of went to radio. There was a movie and a soundtrack, that kind of thing. But I felt like it would have had legs if it had a chance, you know?
Right. I just want to point out to our listeners that, we always talk about getting that moment and being able, you got to deliver when you get that moment. So it sounds like you got this gig, you're like Aldo Nova, and you like rehearsed hard and nailed it, right? And got the gig that way. I think it's important. I don't think kids get that these days, that it's one little moment can change your career forever. You have to deliver when you're given that moment, right?
I'm a big endorser of hard work. Because even my LA story is a true Hollywood story. Scott Humphrey, the producer, another Canadian, he was producing Tommy Lee for the Methods of Mayhem record in '99. I was painting the garage.
Wow.
And he said, Tommy was like, hey, man, we got to get a guitar player on this record. And Scott's like, let's get Phil. And Tommy's like, the dude painting the garage? And Scott's like, yeah. So I come in, trade the paintbrush for a Les Paul, start laying down tracks, and Tommy's like, dude, you got to play on the whole record. So being at the right place at the right time was a factor.
Yeah.
But if these guys hadn't shown up, that would have been another story. I would have went directly back to painting, But I was prepared. I've been in situations where some people, you get into the studio, like when I worked with Alice Cooper, it wasn't Alice Cooper, but his producer, Bob Marlette, had never heard of me. So he kind of like, okay, I did all the guitars, the rhythm guitars and the bass myself. I'm just looking for pixie dust. Go.
Wow.
And again, bang. He go, oh my God, that was amazing. Let's double it. So if you show up, you got to make sure that you're prepared, and you can I have a deep well of ideas because I'm also a songwriter. So I have an instinct of what the song needs, and I went in there thinking, okay, I listened to the track and I'm thinking, okay, it's Alice Cooper, it's horror, it's like a horror show, it's a like a movie kind of thing. So I kind of put that in my brain, and then everything I came up with, he was really impressed with. Because he got my number from Rob Zombie. And
that's awesome.
So yeah, I thought that was awesome too. And and basically he thought, okay, Rob gave your number to Alice, and Alice told me to call you. I don't know who you are, but I'll put you on a couple of songs to appease the boss. But it was like, Bob, dude, I got like 9 songs you can play on, But that was because I delivered.
What was that working on? I worked on that Sinister Urge tour with Rob. I mixed his monitors for that entire tour. What was that like working with Rob? Like it's funny, when I first became aware of you is because of your work on that record, right?
Wow.
And it was Riggs and Blasco and Tempesta, all those guys were killing it. But on the record, there was some amazing guitar stuff. Nothing against Riggs, whatever. I'm saying though, on the record, there was some amazing stuff going on.
Well, there was Rob is great. I loved working with Rob, and then so it all became this big thing. One day we'd be working on Sinister Urge, and then the next day we'd be working on the soundtrack for A House of a Thousand Corpses. And then the next day, he's like, I'm putting a tribute to the Ramones together, and I want to do Blitzkrieg Bop in halftime. You want to play guitar and bass and do backgrounds with me? And I'm like, it was one of those things. So it was like, it was an incredible time for that reason. So now the funny thing, and then he didn't have his band together because he was just in movie mode.
Totally.
And then he called me and said, hey, I'm supposed to do Leno, and I don't have a band. Do you want to play guitar since you played on, we're going to do Brick House. You recorded it. You want to play guitar? And I'm like, yeah. And it was funny because he goes, there's a catch. I'm like, what's the catch? He goes, well, we're promoting the movie, so you're going to have to wear zombie makeup. And I'm like, that ain't no catch.
That's no catch. I'm doing that for sure.
Cool, man. My mom's like, I saw you on TV last night. Why you wore a mask? Oh my goodness, in a mask, man. Just 3 hours of makeup.
I just remember, I was the guy that ran the tracks. I was mixing monitors, so I was on stage, and Rob would turn to me and tell me to turn it on. And so I had the ability to hear individual tracks coming from a DA-88. There's actually two DA-88s slaved
Remember
together.
those? Come on.
I know, right? Two DA-88 slaved together, and I would push play. I would anticipate the play because it would take a minute for the second one to catch up, doing this live thing. It was tough. But I do remember like the guitar tracks that were from that. I was like, holy crap, this guitar sounds amazing.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott's amazing at recording guitars too. And he has a good ear for layering. So anything that I came up with, he had a good way. He found a way to make it fit no matter what was going on. And he goes, "What else you got?" And then I would do something. And this is the funny thing. If he rejected a part for the song, he would catalog it for another project.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "Do I get paid twice?"
Yeah, right. Did you ever hear yourself on something else?
There was because he was doing something with Nikki Sixx. It wasn't Nikki's current what is it? 6 a.m. It wasn't that. It was before that. It was called 54 or something, like the year he was born, I think. So he was doing something, and I did a guitar riff on that, and then I left. And then when we were working on Methods of Mayhem, he's like went into his catalog and brought it out on acid, and he goes, "Can you play something like this?" And I'm like, "I think that's me." And he's like, "It's not labeled. I don't know." I go, "That totally sounds like me, dude." Anyways, but I mean, I think I learned a lot from Scott because he was really creative, really musical, really melodic, and he made stuff sound amazing. So that was the Sinister Urge and the Hellbilly Deluxe, because I mean that whole Matrix soundtrack was amazing, but that song, Dragula, fit so well, and that's what was happening at the time, and Scott took it to another level. Now, the cool thing, I'm pals with John 5, so when we were in Vegas last summer, I think he invited us out to the show. So we were hang out with John, and then I went out and I saw the set list, and that's one of those moments where, oh, I played on that song and that song and that song.
That's awesome.
It's kind of a cool feeling.
I have a pretty good John 5 story, so I can make it really short. One of the first bands I ever mixed in Detroit as a youngster, and I was mixing front of house. John Lowry at the time was the guitar tech because he took lessons from the guitar player in the band.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of good Detroit.
He's a great guitar player.
Yeah.
He's such a cool dude too. Like, I mixed Kiss for a long time, and he was a huge Kiss fan, of course, still is,
man.
Yeah. And he would come to Kiss shows and like hang out in front of the house. So that's how I got to get to know him. Right. But he's a great dude, really awesome dude, and amazing player too.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic player. Yeah. And another side note is I also mix monitors on the Brutal Planet tour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
It's funny because I went to see them in Vegas a couple of years ago, I think. And I was talking to Ryan Roxy, and he said, "Dude, that Brutal Planet solo, like, what the hell?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was trying to impress, I was pulling out all the stops and just diving in." And he goes, "Well, I do the first half and Nita does the second half. So Ryan does a pretty good job, but Nita doesn't even come close."
Oh man.
But
awesome.
That said, she's amazing on stage.
Yeah.
Great to watch. And I don't mean I find a lot of girls I'm going to be a dick right now, and they kind of look awkward with guitars sometimes.
Sometimes that's true.
She looks amazing. Lizzie Hale looks amazing with an Explorer.
Yeah.
And Lita Ford. They to me, those are the three women that make the guitar rock.
Yeah, because it's true. I mean, I've seen a lot of women wear
Nancy Wilson. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nancy Wilson.
Oh, Nancy Wilson. Yeah, with the Charvel deal back in the day.
Well, I can say I don't look good with a guitar either.
She's a great player.
Oh man, that's awesome. So let's see. You're cruising along. You're doing all kinds of bands. You're, you're a first call studio guy there in Los Angeles. And tell me a little bit about how Avril Lavigne came along, because the reason I say that is because I have some history with Butch Walker. And
Right.
so,
who wrote a lot of songs on
That's
the
right.
Tommyland record too.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Butch is amazing. Like I worked with Butch.
Butch, no.
Like I mixed his what was his band after South Gang? God, I'm having trouble. The Marvelous Three. Do you remember that band, the Marvelous Three? Yeah. I mixed a few shows of that. My business partner was somebody that knew him very well, and so anyway, how did you end up with Avril? How did that come about?
It's kind of it's a history thing. Like I was when I was still in Toronto before '97, Our Lady Peace was working on their first record with Arnold Lanny, who's still a bud. I actually talked to him on the phone yesterday, and they had this really thing like we wanted to be the band. We wanted to be the band. Meanwhile, Arn's like, that's not going to work. This guy's playing drums. And we need somebody to do a couple of these guitar parts. And okay, but then we wanted, and those guys didn't even get credited. I didn't even get credited for a solo. It was a song called Denied, I think.
Wow.
And so Arn calls me and he goes, I hate to say this, but we've been working on this solo for 18 hours, and I'm about to punch myself in the face. Can you come in tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I go in. And they were going for something that it was. I remember it was in 6/8 time, and I remember the intensity of the track. So it needed something. It needed a break from the tension, but it also had to stay in the realm. And we became friends. You know, I remember doing 2 passes, probably more passes that were comped together. But my second pass, Rain, the singer, jumped off the couch and put his arms up and. Like, woo, that was it, you know, that kind of thing. So that was our relationship, and it was really cool. And and then I'm living in LA, he's living in LA, and married to Chantel Krivisiak. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they've become this dynamic duo of songwriting and production.
Right.
And they were doing Avril Lavigne. So he called me and he goes, hey man, you're in LA. I'm in LA. I'm producing a record. You want to come play guitar? And I'm like, yeah, sure, man. We pick a day and I'm like, who's the artist? And he goes, Avril. And I'm like, Avril. Meanwhile, she sold 25 million records.
Yeah, right.
As an 18-year-old, like right out of the gate. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure. Which one? That one?
That one?
So I went in, and again, it was the same thing. Like I wish artists, you know, when you enter a room, you could always be on an equal playing field. But she had never heard of me, so she was kind of like, I don't know who this guy is. I just sold 25 million records. So she kind of gave me a little bit of an attitude, and then so the second day, she goes, so what was it like working with Tommy Lee? And then, okay, so I got sort of close to equal.
Yeah.
And then I came in one day, and apparently Rain played her a drill song that he loved called Beautiful Apartment. And she came up to me. I walked in, and she just ran right up to me. And she goes, I love your song, Beautiful Apartment. And I'm like, wow, thanks. Wow. So that got us to the, you know.
That's a really interesting thing. You know, I always tell people that the secret to my success is that I can walk into a room full of crazy people and identify what their needs are. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that dude's crazy, but I know what he needs from me.
And that's why you're successful.
But I wanted to point that out. That's what you went through the hoops to try to, people always talk about how, you got to have this amazing talent and whatever. But I tell them, I say, listen, 95% of the reason I am where I am is because I'm able to get along with people and determine what it is that they need.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And so, and that's not to take away from what we talked about earlier. You still have to deliver, man. You still have to, like you said.
Yeah, you gotta have the.
But the 95% leading up to that, you got to be good at doing what you just talked about.
Now,
Right.
do you
I
feel
think
that's
it's
how
a
you got
plan.
you the Bon Jovi gig though? Is that kind of attitude?
Well, I mean, it helped me keep it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is another thing where you have to show up and deliver. And for me, the Bon Jovi thing was a completely weird situation. Because how do you fill in for a guy like that?
Yeah. How do you fill the shoes of an iconic guitar player?
Right.
What do you
This
do?
guy
A duo. Yeah.
co-wrote some of the best rock songs in the history of rock. You got Living on a Prayer, you got Wanted Dead or Alive, and he's an amazing guitar player, an amazing singer.
Great singer. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, how do you do that? So, I mean, for me, it was John Shanks who, it was funny because at first he didn't know who I was. He just knew I played guitar. And at the time we were getting millions of collective views on the Fretted Americana guitar demos. So, I'm there with Kenny Aronoff and Chris Chaney. Sure, buddy, still doing it. So I'm there with Kenny Aronoff, Chris Chaney, and we're having lunch. And at the time at Henson, John Shanks had a studio at Henson. So he'd come in, we're having lunch, and he goes, "Hey, Kenny. Hey, Chris. Hey, guitar guy." But then I think we were in Studio D, and he made a point to come to the studio and come up to my face and go, "You're fucking funny." I'm like,
Wow.
"What?" He goes, I fell in a rabbit hole last night watching your guitar demos. And not only does it sound like you can play and sing anything, you're fucking funny. I'm like, "Wow, man, thanks." So we started talking about guitars and stuff like that. And then 2 weeks later, he called me and he goes, "I might have a gig for you." I'm like, "Oh, cool. What is it?" He goes, "Oh, I can't tell you on the phone. Can you come by my studio tomorrow?" And I walk in, no audition, no nothing. Here's a contract. Here's a statement of confidentiality.
Right.
Learn these songs. And I'm like, "This is Bon Jovi." He goes, "You might be filling in for Richie Sambora."
Wow.
And it hit me like, that's impossible. You can't. And then, if you don't do it, somebody else will do
Somebody
it.
else.
For
And
sure.
then I thought, okay, well, that's a good way to put it. And then I remember one moment where, when you're on the fence, and this is do it, and this side is no fucking way. Right. So I'm on the fence, and I'm in my living room. They sent me the last 2010 Tokyo Dome concert. Learn this show. And then if you learn this show and you end up coming out, then you can learn more songs while we're out, kind of thing, right? But learn this show. So I'm learning that show. It's on my big screen in the living room. I'm recently divorced. It's me and my dogs. I'm playing to my dogs. I got a pocket Marshall. I'm playing to the DVD. I've learned the songs from the record and live because the arrangements change.
Right.
And playing the set so I can watch John's cues. So I'm ready to do the cues. And they said there's going to be a teleprompter for the lyrics. So that's perfect because now I can just concentrate on memorizing the guitars, and I can read the lyrics for the first few shows. So I got the music stand with the lyrics that I wrote out, and because I remember them better if I write it and not type it.
Yep.
Yep.
Takes me back to school, I guess.
Yep.
So I'm doing this in front of my dogs, and halfway through the set one night, I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is crazy. And then no. So I throw the guitar down on the couch and I plot myself on the couch and I turn on HBO and the Bon Jovi documentary is playing.
Wow.
And I'm like, I guess I'm doing it. Because that was a sign. That was a sign from above.
Yeah,
that
for
was,
sure.
You got to do it. So, and then April 14th, 2011 was the first time John called, and it was a New York number. Didn't recognize it. Let it go to voicemail. And then I checked the mail. Hey, it's John Bon Jovi calling. I'm calling. Call me back.
Wow.
So I call him. We're on the phone for 20 minutes, and he goes, literally, if you came out knowing 25 songs and we can do a 2.5 hour show, which is a long show for anybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. And then I want to bring you to New York to rehearse with the band for a couple of days and then put you on hold for May. And I'm like, okay. So I show up ready, and like nobody else knew. I think this is one of those things that John just kept to himself.
Yeah.
I don't want to worry anybody, but I got it handled. So I walk in, plow through 7 songs, and I hear Tico go, "Who the fuck is this guy?" You know? And so that's
Amazing.
basic. And then it became when I flew to New York, when I landed, the news that Richie went into rehab happened. So on hold went to, you're playing the Jazz Fest in front of 50,000 people in 3 days. So I just remember it being awkward. Like, I mean, when again, being prepared is a big thing, but also you can't get in your head because you get in your way. So if I would have walked on stage freaked out, I wouldn't have made it. I would have been sent home. But I walked on stage going, dude, you got this. You've been playing and singing your entire life. It's just Bon Jovi songs.
Yeah, that's it.
In front of a whole lot of people.
Yeah, and then you got 50,000 people looking at you going, who the hell is that?
Well, yeah.
He looks so different.
What was that like, the noise of that? You know, obviously there's going to be people on both sides of the fence, right? There's going to be people that are like, I don't like this guy. Regardless of what you do, there's going to be a bunch of people that are like, I don't, you know, where's Richie? And then there's going to be other people that are like, wow, this guy's kicking ass, you know, whatever. What was that like for you?
The division was, it's not Bon Jovi without Richie. And on the other side was, I just want to see my band.
Right.
I'm just a huge fan. If this guy's helping me see my band tonight, I'm good with that.
That's great.
But I mean, delivering is another aspect of it. Like, I mean, the first show was like, John didn't even introduce me until the encore. We'd like to help. First of all, it's an hour and a half of confusion in the audience. And then when he says, I'd like to thank Phil X for helping us out tonight, everybody's on their phone Googling Phil X.
Oh, wow.
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy?
Obviously, every head go. What? You know? So it was interesting. What did he say, Phil? What? Is that even a name? You know? So it was really interesting in that respect. And then there was a girl who was in the 9th row, I think, and she had captured every song and had uploaded it onto YouTube by the next morning.
Of course.
Wow.
And that helped me a lot.
I'm sure.
And the other thing was when they do stadiums, you can't get stuck in the crowd. So we go from the stage to the van to the jet to beat getting out of there, right? So I'm in a jet. I land. I turn my phone on. I get a text from a friend who sends me a link to a Nashville newspaper saying Bon Jovi performs without Sambora not missed.
Ooh, nice.
So, like, I mean, I'm just gonna go out there and agree with naysayers that is just an opinion.
Right.
But John walked up to me and said, "Did you see this?" So he patted himself on the back for picking the guy.
Right.
And I got to pat myself on the back for doing a good job.
That's amazing, man. And that must have felt like some great validation for you, right?
It really did. Like, but I didn't want it to get out. Like, more and more press for saying that I replaced Richie. And I didn't like that.
Right.
So, and it seems like a strategic chess move. But when I literally said, I hate the press is saying that I replaced Richie Sambora. because I haven't. I'm just helping the band out, and RS will be back when he's back on his feet. And not all, but a lot of the naysayers were like, he's just helping our band. We like him.
That's awesome.
So that was like that was a turning point too. But I mean, it doesn't stop someone from holding up a sign saying, "Where's Richie?"
Oh man, I know. I bet you see that.
Like it's gonna happen, right?
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question from a production end. You're coming in, all of a sudden you're one of the biggest bands in the world. You're playing guitar, and there's a lot of minutia surrounding that to stay focused. You've got monitor guys wanting to talk to you, your tech wanting to talk to you. You're looking up at that lighting rig and it's a zillion lights up there and a massive stage and this and that. And you just got to get your blinders on and stay focused. What is that part like coming in and all these people wanting to talk to you and what do you want in your dressing room and this and that? And you're just going, I got to play guitar.
Yeah.
And I'd never worn in-ears before.
Well, so there you go. Yeah. So you got all these people stuffing shit in your head. And
I could not adjust. I didn't have the time to get used to in-ears. So how I play with the drills is I wear one earplug because monitors are never your friend when you're playing like a club or something like that. Right. So I just adjust for years and years, even from the cover bands back in, I always just wore an earplug. So I go, how can I do this? Like I was lucky to have a cabinet on stage for the first tour. Right. So I walked in playing Richie's rig. Like they're not going to like, hey, where's your amp? No. This is your amp. And he was using this crazy pedal board thing. So I just brought an overdrive, a tuner, a wah pedal for one song. I used his talk box with my hose and let's go. But and in 2011, he was using Marshall JCM 2000s, which I love Marshall, but those were not my favorite because they had this thing where when you turn down, everything got cloudy.
Yeah.
And my clean sound is me turning down. So that didn't work. So at the time I was working with Evil Robot amplifiers, and I called John Cascia and I said, you got to send an Evil Robot out and put it on the amp on the cabinet that was on stage. And it was funny because John came over and said, what's that? I go, oh, that's my amp. And then he looked at my pedal board and he's like, this is all you use? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I got to talk to Richie. Because the sound guy, I forget his name. I think we talked about it the other day, but he was amazing. He came up and he goes, what are you doing for reverb and delay? I'm like, it's all you, man. He's like, yes. And not only that, I mean, even on, he was a big fan of guitar and he was a big fan of a clean signal.
Yeah.
Because he said, there was two things he said to me. He said that, there was one thing he said to me, and there was another thing that I heard on YouTube the next day when I was seeing if I was doing a good job. And I'm hearing, oh, this guy's like boosting my pick slides. And I'm like, awesome. I love this guy. This is awesome. Not just licks and solos, but I'm like, what the? That's awesome. And then he came up to me and he goes, man, I can't tell you how awesome that it has to have a clear, clean rock guitar signal. And I'm like, I'm asked questions because I'm curious. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, Richie was running through so much stuff because he loved what he used in the studio. He wanted to recreate every sound that it became hollow sounding. So for me to boost his solo, I'd have to go like that. But with you, I just got to go like this and I get the same level. Yeah. And I learned a lot. I mean, when you go from playing clubs with a band, which I still do now, which I love, I tell everyone I feel blessed that I get to do both. I get to paint on both canvases. I get the small band in a van playing in front of 100 to 300 people, sharing hotel rooms, and then jets and stadiums. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing feeling, and I love the intimate setting because you get to, it's like playing a basement party or a high school bash, and you got like 100, 300 friends there. It's kind of like when you last June we did Wembley Stadium, and it was 82,000 people, and there's a picture of me on the catwalk like this big,
Totally, yeah,
in front of 82,000 people, and I'm like, it takes your breath away.
Oh yeah.
And then the following March, we're playing in London in a club with the Drills, and that, having this intimacy without the barrier and people knowing our lyrics and singing my words to my face, that takes my breath away too. So I feel like the blessing is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Totally.
The last time I was here, guys, I played Wembley. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
That's your connection. You said something a while back about, Fretted America. And I feel like, you're the same age as we are. And I am just recently like pivoting to online YouTube stuff like this. Yeah. But I feel like you did that early on. Like what made you head in that direction? It's part of the reason that we really wanted to have you on is because we love that Unchained
oh my gosh
thing that you did.
Thanks, man. I mean,
more than mind blowing. If anybody hasn't seen that, please tell them real quick how to see it, how to get it, because that just blew me away, and I hadn't had goosebumps like that for music in 30 years.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you. My YouTube channel is PhilX1111, and I just started putting stuff up, and I wanted to do some cover. I'm a huge fan, and I not only want to do a cover like that performance. I'm pretty proud of that performance, but I wanted to do a 10-minute. This is what I did, dude. Like having coffee, like. How did you get the tone, and how did you do that? I'm answering all these questions out of the gate.
Yeah, it was so good. So good.
Thanks, man. And I really, but it was a pet project, and it was a project of love. I love and grew up. I remember hearing Unchained on my way to high school in the car on Q107, and New Van Halen coming right up.
Yeah, right. Totally.
I'm like, blown away. And so that song really hit me hard. And then I saw the tour, the Fair Warning tour, and Eddie had new moves and new licks, and was constantly just freaking me out. And again, making me want to be even more inventive with my own style.
Yeah.
But the thing I think with Ed that I got the most was the fire. Like I feel like I see a lot of guys playing his parts and technically accurate, but there's no fire. There's no soul. I'm like, yeah, you're not getting it. But,
yeah.
You have to, I don't know how to advise. I don't know how to tell somebody to get fire. It's something that it's either in here or, like my wife is an amazing cook, and she measures stuff by eye.
Right.
A dash of this and a pinch of that and a dash of that. And I'm like, you want to make a cookbook? You can't make a cookbook like that. She goes, well, I'll start writing it down. But it comes from here. It's in her.
No, yeah, that's right. That's right. It's the hardest thing when, I'm sure, if you have teaching any students or whatever, for me, when I'm teaching someone how to mix, it's the thing that I can't teach. It's like you either have that or you don't have that.
And it's not just an ear, it's an instinct.
That's right.
Right? It's like, I don't mean to cut you off, Tater,
No,
but I was in the studio with Chris Lord Algie, he brought us in to do his Mix with the Masters episode, tracking a live band off the floor. And I was like standing there, like, okay, Grammy award winning mixer. Like I've been to his house, they're all lined up, and then, but watching him in the studio, watching him hover over a mixing console is like watching a keyboard player.
Yep.
Notes. I'd never seen that before. and I was totally blown away. And it's not just this, it's this with, it's his finesse is incredible. So, but the whole thing with the video was that, and then going back to Fretted Americana, that was a complete accident. So, it was like, hey, we want to do videos of you playing our guitars. And I'm like, okay. It started like a minute and a half of, this is the treble pickup, this is the neck pickup. See you next week.
That's awesome.
To just grow. No. Hey, this amp's got a little gain. Let's do Eruption on a 59 Junior special and use the tuning peg as a whammy bar. And then I'm singing AC/DC and screaming Zeppelin, and then being funny because I don't take myself seriously, because I don't think you really should when you're doing something like that. And then people are like really gravitating towards it. And it was something new that wasn't being done. And then Dustin Jack, our co-creator and director and editor and all that stuff, he goes, I don't know if you're watching, but I think we hit 30 million views.
Holy cow.
Wait, what? How did that happen? And then I'm looking at comments, and of course there's naysayers and trolls and all this stuff. But, it's one of those things where you just want to do it because it's so much fun.
Right.
And then people were like, why did you stop? And I stopped because it stopped being fun. It's like, okay, this is work now. Or I started.
I hope you do every Van Halen song, because I mean, and it wasn't. It was the sound of it was fantastic. The playing was absolutely incredible. Kenny Aronoff, a friend of mine,
love Kenny.
got it. Everything was so good. And then you describing how you got there and listening to your detail of how you perceived what he did back then. And, to the point is, I'm not cutting my guitar up, but I'm going to still go for it. It was just, your energy and your enthusiasm doing it definitely rubbed off. And man, the product showed. It was just,
I have friends. I call all my Eddie buddies disciples of Ed. And I was sending around rough mixes to my friends and saying, does this sound close enough? And they're like, I thought it was it. But to me, it wasn't quite, because I was like I was saying, my ringtone is Van Halen Unchained for like 12 years. So if I was listening to a rough mix on my phone and then my phone rang, I'm like, nah, that's not it.
That's not the tone.
But then my buddy, who's a drummer, Brian Tishy, who's a fabulous drummer, but also a guitar player and a huge Ed fan, he goes, I think the low E string chug sounds a little too controlled. And it had passed my observation at first. And then when I'm going, he's totally right. But how do you get that? So now I'm putting the 42 gauge string on, tuned to C sharp. Wow. And now it's getting close. And then the Fretted Americana days come back to me. I was playing an Esquire, and the pickup was really close to the string, and it sounded violent and amazing. But I picked so hard that I was slamming into the pickup, and then it wasn't usable at some point. So I go, hey man, Dusty, give me a fucking Phillips screwdriver. So I lower the pickup, and now it was playable, but all that violence and aggression went away. So that hit. I'm like, where's my screwdriver? So now I'm raising the pickup to the point where I'm almost slamming the string into the pickup, but then backing it off a little bit. And that's how I got that violent chug.
Oh man, that's amazing. It's really great.
So good.
Let's talk a little bit. We're coming to the end here, and we're gonna do a little Q&A period with him that we'll post in a couple of days. So there's gonna be some other questions that we'll ask him, but I just want to talk about the drills a little bit, just because, dude, I got to tell you, Stupid Good Lookings, like, I listened to that and went, what the hell is happening? Like, I was like, I just got to say, that's my favorite response.
Oh man.
No, seriously, dude. Like, I love rock. I grew up on rock, and there isn't any good rock bands right now. You know what I mean? So when I heard that, I went, oh shit, here we go. You know what I mean?
I love doing the drills. I mean, I've never ever thought of myself as a game changer in the respect of rock and roll. I totally believe, like, Van Halen, Nirvana, Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. You know, like you.
I hear King's X in your shit. Is that
There is, because I feel like when I say I'm not a game changer, I feel like I'll make music and I'll tip my hat to my influences, because I ain't changing shit. But I have influences that I grew up listening to, and there is King's X in there, so much that I got Doug Pinnick to co-sing a song with me.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
You thought that was me?
No,
Man, listen, the King's X. It's a third of them. But I got to tell you how that went down, because I love Doug is a dear friend, and I love his voice. He's one of my favorite singers in the world, right?
Yeah, of course.
So to have a friend like that is to call up a friend and say, hey, can you, I want to do the blues number. And the Joes don't do blues. I'm not even a blues fan, you know? I got nothing to be blue about most of the time. So right. I want it to sound like, I want it to be my guitar and me on the porch, drinking lemonade, doing this blues thing, playing guitar the way I play guitar, but in a blues fashion. Blues, you know, like a 12-bar thing, but change the passing chords. And then when the band kicks in, and it was Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums, who's like one of the best drummers in the world and the sweetest guy, I'll have Doug and Abe come in together. And that plan totally backfired, because I sang my bit in the same register. And then when Doug started singing, I was like, I have no business being in the same register as Doug. So Pro Tools is amazing. I took his vocal and put it took his second verse, made it the first verse with my guitar. So it's just me and him. And then when Abe comes in, and it's kind of like when the levee breaks, kind of groove, I went into my plant range, and that's what made it work. And even though it was a plan B, it was the best plan B I ever had. You know, Doug's his singing makes my hair stand. And then when I went into my plant range, it was like, it seemed like the obvious choice. So then we do the bridge in octaves. He's in the lower octave, I'm in the upper octave, and it just came together like that. And that's another thing that I'm really proud of that wasn't in the blueprint, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know what's so funny is I'll be honest, I didn't know that Doug was in the band, and I didn't know that Abe was in the band. All I knew was that you were in the band. I didn't do my research, and I listened to it. Abe, I went to school with at Berklee College of Music. We were like really good friends, known him a long time. And so when I said, yeah, it has some King's X influence, I didn't know Doug was playing on it.
Well, that was a great record because there's 6 drummers on it. And Volume 2 is going to have another 6 drummers on it.
Awesome.
I called up Tommy. He's on it. Ray Luzier from Korn is on it. I got Liberty DeVito on it because we became pals during the shooting of the Hired Gun documentary. So I've been in a situation where I get to play with
amazing.
I get to do sessions with these guys, and then we meet at other events and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, you play drums on something? And they're like, yeah, man, no problem. And it's like,
that's amazing. I mean, you know, the fact that you're getting opportunities to play with those people is.
Yeah. And then I also, on the Volume 1, I wanted to tip my hat to, it was 40 years since Van Halen 1 came out. And I wanted to tip my hat to like the I'm the One kind of hyper boogie that Van Halen used to do. So there's a song called Rock and Roll You All Night Long with Glenn Sobel playing drums. And I have to say, Dan is always on bass because he's my Dan. We play with so many drummers live and in the studio that Dan, another Canadian, he literally is the glue between me and every drummer. Like I have this is where I be. This is where the drummer be somewhere, and no matter how big that notch is in the middle, Dan just happens to fill that notch perfectly. So he's Daniel Spree. He's my boy, man. I call him because we're Canadian and we talk about. I'm not a big hockey fan, but the reference comes up a lot. He's my left wing for life.
Oh man, that's so awesome.
And every time we talk about a drummer, we call the drummer the goalie.
Well, that's true.
I like that.
Hey, well, listen, man. Thank you so much for your time. We've kind of run out of time in our hour here, but don't forget, guys, we're gonna do an extra 30 minutes here with Phil. So look for that in the next couple of days. Phil,
Thanks
you,
for having
man.
me, guys. Thank you.
Dude,
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming on and sharing all your stuff. Let me do a little bit of promotion. We'll get off here and then we'll go do the Q&A thing. I appreciate it so much. Hey, guys, next week is Jerry Harvey. Jerry is an innovator. He's a monitor engineer, an entrepreneur. His in-ear monitors took over the industry starting with Ultimate Ears, and for the last 10 years, his own company, JH Audio. Known for their exceptional sound quality by touring musicians, crew, and audiophiles, he continues to be the dominant force in the pro IAM market. As a monitor mixer, he has mixed legendary bands Van Halen, Kiss, Motley Crue, David Lee Roth, Katie Lang, Morrissey, The Cult, and Linkin Park. So that's Jerry Harvey next week. That's going to be great. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos. We just passed 1,000 subscribers to our channel, and we're very grateful that you have helped us to reach this milestone. Thank you so much. Keep telling all your friends, subscribe, and smash like on all of our videos, please. Also, unfortunately, Congress did not include our industry's attempt at rescue called Restart in the latest bill to help failing businesses. We need Congress to intervene and urge states to continue unemployment funding. We are a dead industry right now. Unlike other industries, we have no jobs to apply for. For some, unemployment is the only thing keeping us from selling our homes and living on the streets. We need funding to keep the 12 million people in the live event industry afloat. Many of us are independent contractors or we own small businesses that have not had income since March. We need help. Please go to extendpua.org, wemakeevents.org, NAMM.org, and for help with mental health and well-being, theroadieclinic.com for more information on how you can help. Contact your local representatives and remind them about our forgotten industry. Without skilled workers like Tater and myself, there will be no live shows when we are allowed to gather again. Thanks for the support. Phil, once again, dude, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And
Can't wait to hang in person.
yeah, man. Take care, guys, and have a good week, and we'll see you next week with Jerry Harvey.